Hello, my name is Josiah, and today we're going to be talking about Netmon. Obviously, Netmon is an easy box. The reason we chose this is because it's an OSCP-like box, and it's a good one to kind of get our feet wet. There are a few rabbit trails and a few kind of twists and turns across this. So, in this video series, I suppose, we're going to be talking not only about the how, so I'm not just going to give you commands, but we're also going to understand the why, pardon me, behind all of these exploits, right? So we're going to look at commands that we can run, and we're going to see different rabbit trails, some, again, sort of twists and turns through every single piece of this. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get started. So after you start your box, you should be able to ping it. Netmon, I believe, is just at 10.10.10.152. So we know we have lab connectivity. We know we have started the box. We've done all the prerequisites to kind of get started here. So the first thing we're obviously going to do is we're going to nmap the machine. This is about 99.9% of the time you're going to start with the nmap. You're going to just look for default ports and settings. We'll talk a little bit about other commands that you can run in order to sort of interrogate the machine. However, really the goal with this is to understand what you're working with initially and start to build an attack framework while other enumeration commands are running in the background. Okay, so we'll just start with nmap. Obviously, the command we ran is going to be this. So it's nmap-sc-sv-pn-oa, and I saved it as nmap initially. The reality is that SC is for default scripts, SV is for all ports. This determines whether or not you can ping it, and then OA is to all formats. So a few things should stand out to us right away, especially with it being an easy box and having a little bit of context surrounding it. We should know that anonymous FTB seems really juicy. Okay, we've got a strange PRTG sort of application in the ethos, and then SMB, right? So we've got 2008 to 2012, so that looks a little outdated. The other thing that I like to typically run initially while I start my attack phase and enumeration phase is auto recon. So auto recon will, if you just do a quick Google search in auto recon, it'll bring you up to a, pardon me, and Tiberius is the creator. It will bring you to a sort of script that runs in the background and really works with OSCP, CTFs, and it basically runs a lot of commands in the background. I've already run that as well. And so if I go into that, go into scans, you'll see, excuse the chaotic files here. A lot of these won't exist after you run it. But if I cat this full TCP in map text, you'll see that there are several other ports that are open, right? So you can try 5985, you can try 4701. So there's a lot of different ports that are not initially found in the default scripts. Again, with this being an easy box, it's not necessary to really dig too far deep into that, but that's just a tool to be aware of and something that runs in the background. Can also give you a lot of different commands. So if I type manual commands, it goes through all of the ports and gives you a general outline of commands that you can try. So, if we find a login on the front end, for instance, or even in FTP, we can try to brute force the front end of FTP. We can try and brute force the front end of TCP/80 or HTTP. So that's just a little background on what I like to do initially. Obviously, it takes a while to run, so I believe it took a couple hours to run. So when I do that, I use Nmap, use auto recon, and then I'll pop in and start my initial enumeration phase. Okay, so you've got several ports again that are um, of interest as we saw. So let's pop back out of that and go into Nmap and cat Nmap again. And when we do that, we see those interesting ports. So before you just go straight in and down the gate, right? You don't want to just break through and start, running through rabbit trails left and right. Instead, the goal is to methodically think about, okay, where can I go? What can I do? And the best way to really start that is by taking notes. So I use a tool called Notion. A lot of people use a lot of other things. There's Cherry Tree, there's Sublime Text. You can use a lot of different pages. And I just start with this table right here. Okay. So I have a table that's in a template, and I just say port service version, and I just start filling that out. And that gives me a context for what I'm doing. And then I go into here with notes and enumeration to-dos, which I haven't filled out here, but basically I just start to think through, okay, these are the common ways in which I know I'm going to attack this, right? So as we start to build out our methodology and we start to build out the approach, we're going to start looking at different ways to build that out. Okay, so we've got all of that. Now, what is the first step? I mean, there's a lot of different ways you can chop this up. Always the first thing that I like to do is just visit the web page. So is it what it says it is? Obviously, you can just go to 10.10.10.152. It will bring it up. So we've got a PRTG network monitor, Netmon for short, which makes sense with the box name. And there's a login here, okay? So there's a lot of different logins that you can actually try. We could think through brute forcing. We could think through other assessments. We could try directory busting. We could look up default credentials for PRTG. So initially, that's just where my mind goes. Is okay. I've got a login page here. Now I'm just going to jot down these notes. I'm going to say, brute force the front end, common username and password. We're going to start directory busting. We're going to, look at 445. What are the obvious things? Service versions. We can try SMB client. We can try, we have an anonymous FTP here. So maybe anonymous is the actual username, or PRTG, whatever it may be, right? So we're just kind of looking at, initial hacking phase here. Without really digging too deep into each port is the most important and emphatic part of this. So you're not just diving straight in. You're taking a step back, taking notes, gaining context about the machine, and actually filling in the blanks as you move across the machine. Okay. So obviously, anonymous FTP seems really juicy initially. So let's just go ahead and FTP into that. Type anonymous and anonymous. By doing that, we're brought to a sort of a root directory, or the back directory, the C directory. And because of that, we can see that there are many different ways that we can start approaching this, right? So again, note taking, really important. Understanding where you're at within context is really important. But initially, you probably go into the users directory and see where you can go. What? Oh, duh. Sorry about that. Still waking up. So I typed in the wrong command, FTP users. Obviously, you want to do SCD users. And then there's two directories here. So we can always try the administrator. This is an easy box, so maybe that's a vector. Nope, sure isn't. So go into public, and you'll find your first flag. Okay, so somebody else is on this box. I didn't put tester.txt on there, but regardless, the goal is to understand, okay, where am I? what is this? But you're in users public, so if there's a public directory online, that's what this person is trying to do, which is probably the right thing to think through is, okay, if I can put tester.txt on here, where is this actually living? And where is this being punched out? So I could try the public directory online or something like that and maybe understand that. Okay. So if you type out user.txt, you'll get the user flag. I'm not going to do that. Oh, I'm sorry. You can't type it. You need to get it first. So get user.txt and then type it out in your actual terminal. However, when you're thinking about, FTP and understanding the various ways in which you can exploit this, there's a lot of kind of spots to go to, right? So you can't get into the administrators directory, okay? But that doesn't necessarily mean you can't find other pieces of useful information. So you could cd into inetpub, and you could look at the FTP root logs. You can run around the machine basically to understand, okay, this is what this machine is, this is what it's doing, these are the program files that are on it. We already know that Paisley or PRTG is already on the box, and so I'm not going to spend a lot of time enumerating this box initially. Again, the best thing to do initially, of course, is to methodically work through it. So you do some initial enumeration, go ahead and set a timer for 15 to 30 minutes and just start digging around, right? You pull down files, you understand what the box is supposed to do, where it's supposed to go, and everything like that. You know that you're looking for maybe some credentials, so you can really try that way. I'm a little hesitant to start moving through this box without checking the other ports. So obviously you want to spend just a brief amount of time on each port, kind of interrogating it, so we can SMB client to that and see where we can get. So you might try an anonymous login, you might try something else, you might try various passwords. You could try brute forcing the front end of SMB and understand that a little bit more. What you're going to find on this particular box is that it is a rabbit hole, so nothing too crazy there to find, at least. So we can kind of check off SMB client and all of that. We can try putting a malicious web folder there as we kind of move through, FTP root, inetpub, program files, and other things like that. In the Windows directory especially, you might find a few interesting files and pull those down. You might find some interesting users. So back in the users directory, if you ls-la, you might find something else that you like. Okay, so again, you've kind of worked through all of this. Now the next space that we're going to kind of move into is port 80. And so it's PRTG network. PRTG network monitor, we can type in this and say CVE. Okay. So there's a lot of different places you can go. I like to just go to CVE details and look for any interesting files. So you really want to concentrate on these 9s here. Even some of the 7.5s, you see you can execute code. And so you're looking for anything that matches your version number that you can get remote code execution on, right? So remote code execution on 19 point. So that's not our version, so I'm not too worried about that. Oh, but hey, so 18 remote unauthenticated attackers with read-write privileges. You can look at interesting files, it looks like. There's a few other ones here. So 18.2.39, exploit OS command injection, so sending malformed parameters. So a lot of interesting CVEs here. You just take note of that. Another sort of hack for hackers is to just look up GitHub. Okay, so you can type in exploit. You'll see I already did that there, but you might even run across a few other walkthroughs here. But you have a GitHub. Exploit DB is a great website that's oftentimes used with the OSCP because Exploit DB is, I believe, a part of offensive security. I could be wrong there. Don't quote me on that, but so Exploit DB oftentimes has Metasploit modules in there as well, so you can always look at that. The other, like I said, you can always type in GitHub. You got your version here. Obviously, you can see where this is going, but the point is to do proper enumeration. So you're looking at your service version, you're looking at your CVE details, you're looking at where these sort of exploits are living and what user privileges you may need, what exploit parameters are necessary. So this is authenticated. So this creates a new user. So you might try this first. You might go into a remote unauthenticated user can craft this. So you might get some information disclosure here or other bits of useful information. So all of these are worth trying, right? So you can pop into here and you can try this exploit. You can go in here and see if you're able to create a new user. All of those are rabbit trails, so I'm going to save you about 30 minutes in this video. What I did try those various exploits, but the point that I'm trying to make is that hey, you should leave no stone unturned. You should try every exploit, but always set a timer, right? So you don't want to spend 5 hours on the wrong exploit. So just look it up, make a note of it, try it out, and move through in a logical block and phases, and you'll be able to eventually find it, because basically proper enumeration equals an own box, and conversely non-proper enumeration equals you still need to keep going. And so just think through it logically and do that. So you need an authenticated command injection. And another dead giveaway oftentimes is you'll see, like in this particular space, Netmon / pentest. So not not exactly something to take lightly when you're trying to own a box. Is you might look for clues that hey, maybe this is the right path, and it's not a dead giveaway, but might lead you toward that exploit. I digress here. So you got HTB Netmon box. So I say that in jest because it's pretty obvious what path we're going to use. But here's the problem. Okay, so you look up PRTG admin or PRTG default credentials, let's say. What's going to happen? Okay, so it's going to say, okay, you need certain ones, and it's both PRTG admin. Okay, so you go into the box, or you go into the portal, you try PRTG admin, Oh, login failed. So not the right vector. You can try a bunch of different things, right? So PRTG admin administrator, PRTG admin, Netmon, PRTG admin, whatever it may be, and try all the common stuff. You can also try and brute force, but basically what's going to happen is you're not going to be able to find it. Or rather, you're actually not going to be able to break into the front end. Pardon me. A little under the weather here. So that's where you go back to your notes, right? So we know that PRTG admin is the proper way. We've been on here. We know that we need some authentication somehow. You can try information disclosure. You can try the back end. You can try a bunch of different things, but we always go back to our notes. So we know that FTP is open. Wow. Have we completely overturned every single stone that's possible? No, we sure haven't. And I apologize for this being in my notes here, because eventually we're going to see that. Okay, so we've got our notes open. We know that we can try this CVE. We've probably tried brute force. We've tried all the common name stuff. We've noticed that there's no real interesting directories beyond what we're able to find. So let's dig into these interesting files again. Okay, so again, it's a methodical approach that we're just taking each step, thinking about it logically, trying to move through it in the best way possible, so that we don't get stuck, so that we don't lose sight of the end goal. Okay, so going to users. Something we didn't try, right, is hidden commands. So, if we go back and we say ls-la, we see a bunch of other potentially useful file directories, and we can go into recycle and see if anything was dumped there that hasn't been deleted, et cetera, et cetera. So let's pop into users, type in ls-la. Now what we'll see is there's several other user directories. Okay, so if we go back to that exploit, they gave us a little bit of information here. So they said also try for set up an account with auth. It might be we're checking the database or log to gain them. Okay, so if we open this file, we see that where does it save data? Where does it store data? Where's the local database and all of that stuff? If we read through this file, we see that it's stored in the all user profile. Okay, so little continuous enumeration will allow you to kind of bypass all of the, for lack of a better term, BS that you don't want to deal with. So if we see into the all users directory, we'll see that there is a Paisley, which is obviously the creator of PRTG. So if we cd into Paisley user, and cd further, if you just tab it, it can also autocomplete for you. And then we find a bunch of interesting directories here and a bunch of interesting files. So look at that. We've got a log database. We've got, sensors. That could be interesting. System. Woo, that sounds super interesting. Even the web server, could be something else. System information database. What could that be? So through proper enumeration and through proper file gathering and everything, we're going to skip a step here, and we're not going to pull all of those files down, do all the research and everything like that. But what we are going to do is pull down two major files here. The first is the configuration.dat and then the old.back. And again, we're bypassing a step because we obviously want to pull all of these down. We want to enumerate each one individually. If you go online and do a little bit more research, you'll probably find that the configuration.dat is a very useful configuration file, and so you can pull that down. So why don't we do that here? So I'm just going to get PRTG. Let's do this. PRTG configuration.dat. Okay, so we're going to get that. And sometimes, this is in ASCII mode. Sometimes it's really, really beneficial to move into binary mode. And the reason being because data can get really weird when converting. But if it's in ones and zeros, it's just a little bit safer to convert. And so we're going to get the PRTG configuration.old.back. Again, we're in binary mode, so we can pull those files accurately. Now, again, proper enumeration, proper exploitation. Make sure you're in the right directory. So I'm still in my nmap directory, but that's not a huge deal. What I want to do now is sort of comb through these, right? So the first thing everybody always does is just cats it out. They say, okay, what is this? And then we find that there is a lot of information here. So things can be missed. You don't want to do anything rash and think that you've completely enumerated when you actually haven't. However, a better thing to do is to use your common Kali tools, right, to be able to enumerate properly. And so if we go cat prtg and then grep prtg dot cat and then grep, we can find a little bit easier passwords. So -b is 2 lines before, -a is 2 lines after. And what that will do is give us a little bit more information, right? So we're looking for, proxy password. All of these are encrypted. What you'll find is that in the main configuration file, for obvious reasons, Paisley doesn't want to store your passwords in a bad way. And so they're all encrypted. They're all scrubbed out of the file. So now this is the typical point for most attackers where they kind of throw their hands up. They say, okay, I've made all of these initial steps. I've enumerated completely. I've, done a lot of research into different, ways. I cannot find configuration or credentials, for all of these different files. Obviously, we have another file to enumerate. We'll get into that in a sec, but I just want to take a moment to kind of think about the why behind continuously looking, because usually, the answer is closer than we think, and all problems are easy after they're solved, right? So we're going to have an aha moment eventually and say, oh, I was so stupid. Why didn't I do that? But the point here is to not beat yourself up, not to get too down on yourself and say, man, I can't do this. I can't get into this. Like, this is way too hard. And some people might have just found it right away. And if you are one of those people, I applaud you. But I was not one of those people. So I looked at the configuration file and I said, oh, shoot, where else could this be? And I started digging into other files and digging into other resources and, trying brute force again with different flags and, trying to kind of get through the front end. I will say typically brute force is not the answer in most cases. Just a kind of common tip. They typically like to have something a little bit more readily available because, brute force flags can be very, very different depending on what it is, and can also take a very long time. And so people like to have fun with these boxes and might not encourage you to brute force. I digress there. The point being is that, hey, don't give up. Don't lose sight of the goal. Okay, you're looking for some credentials to authenticate, and so you're gonna move through that. And so we can also look at prtg configuration.old.back. Okay, so you're thinking, bummer. Okay, I've got all these encrypted files here. Nothing really important. Nothing too crazy. Where's this going? And then if we scroll all the way up, though, we'll eventually see that there was a DB password stored for us, right? So this is what I mean by proper enumeration, proper exploitation, and proper understanding, right? Because if we didn't enumerate each one of these files, if we didn't look through all of what we think we're supposed to, we'll never get the right answer, and we'll always just rely on walkthroughs or other people to give us the answers. But if we continue enumeration, try a little bit harder, keep enumerating wherever we can, we'll get there eventually. So, ding, 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 we've got a username, we've got a password. If you were me, what would be the first thing you'd try? Okay, so a lot of people, I think, would just go back to that CVE where they saw Netmon and say, hey, I'm going to try this. I'm going to just, spray and pray. I'm going to enter this information into this exploit because I saw the word Netmon here and just going to work that way. That is not the right answer for many reasons, but basically the first thing or the next thing you'd really want to do is try that in the web portal, right? So you've got PRTG admin 2018. and seems like a possibility that it's going to work in there. And so if we try PRTG admin 2018, we'll see that the login will fail as it gets hung up here. But we'll see that the login's failed. Now we think to ourselves, why would the login fail? They gave me the password. They gave me the thing that I really need. So it's possible to just keep trying again, or trying with other exploits, or trying, all that stuff. I've got the password. What is this? That, again, we have to think critically about what's going on here. So we have an old configuration file, right? So 2018 is the old version. So what is it, 2023 now? So a common or a better thing to do, I suppose, in this instance would be to then start with 2023 and just keep backtracking. Okay, just keep backtracking. When you do that, eventually you get to 2019. Okay, so I just open my text editor here while this gets hung up. I'm going to just say 2019. Okay, so obviously this is the right answer. But eventually, you're just backtracking until you get to the space where you need to go. And once you do that, you're in that area with PRTG admin. So sorry about that. Looked like I needed to reset the box. So I'm back here. We're going to try PRTG admin and our new password, which is 2019. Again, starting with 2023, 2022, 2021. Eventually, we'll get to the point where we get to 2019. We try this, and it will bring us into the back end. Okay, so welcome, PRTG System Administrator. So beautiful. We have some administrator privileges into the web portal. So probably the next thing you want to do if you're legit trying to CTF, legit trying to hack into this, is to go online and say, hey, how do I get a reverse shell from PRTG? Hey, how do I do that? How do I, move into, do I need to go into libraries, add a library? Can I, add some, or can I see any logs that are different? Maybe go into the setup and try and move into different areas of the application. Because we've already done quite a bit of enumeration, we can also always just go back to our notes and try CVE 2019. This is the one I chose. It was a Python 3 exploit. Again, not too concerned about eventually getting there, right? Because we've already done our initial enumeration, and so we know that this could work. And so let's go ahead and just try it, right? We've got our password. We know that it's admin, and so we're going to just follow the example that's outlined here. Of course, we want to review the code first before running it. So it could be malicious. It could be something bad. So basically, don't be a dummy, and make sure that you move into the right space for that, and that you review the code before you run anything. So remove -R. I'm gonna do that because I've already pulled it down. But basically, we're going to git clone our command here, and then because we have that, we can move into the directory. We've got exploit.py. We go back to our initial setup. That's the wrong one. Here we go. Sorry about that. The next thing we want to try is exploit.py, and then what the target IP, target port is, our host port and L port, and then a user and PG admin 2019. So obviously, I've run this before. One caveat here is that I did, get hung up on port 445. I also ended up getting hung up on port 80. And so that might work for some people. For me, it didn't work. And so, again, initial enumeration and understanding all of the various ports that are open can be an advantage when it comes to the exploitation phase, because it can tell us, okay, well, 80 didn't work, 445 didn't work, 21 didn't work. Now I'm stuck because I can't get this exploit to ping back out to me. And so with 5985, knowing that's open, we can go ahead and try that port as well. So just a note there to constantly be going back to your notes and understanding, where you're at. So without further ado, I'm just going to run this. And after everything is done, it is going to give us, a shell. That shell is going to be NT authority, and then we can just move straight into, the root flag and get that. So a few big takeaways from this talk is understand what you're doing, understand that note taking and the large advantages of methodically working through each exploit, as needs to be understood, and then making sure that you're taking notes as you go. So after you try something, do it, and if it doesn't work, maybe you come back to it after you've tried everything else. But the point is that eventually you get to a point where it's not necessary to overturn all these stones, because you have a direct path, because you've properly enumerated. Okay, so it was getting hung up on a process back there, but it doesn't really matter, because it's gonna keep doing that, but that's okay, because we still have an active connection. We're still able to move into that. So now, as you know, and the reason that we know that we can do that is because when we run who am I, we are NT authority, right? So now we're in the administrators. Oh, and I'm off today. Moving to desktop. Obviously, we can type out the root flag. And that's it. That's all we got to do. Thanks so much for watching, and we'll catch you on the next one.